Rosalind Russell suddenly disappeared in 1943 when she was at the height of her Hollywood fame. She didn't make any movies or public shows for decades. The stated reason given was being tired. The terrible truth is finally told to her by her son Lance, but that's not the only secret they kept from her. This is the Rosalind Russell that no one knew, from her real birth year to the story that has never been told about her sadness on Oscar night. Russell was born in Waterbury, Connecticut on June 4, 1907. She grew up in a huge house with 18 rooms at 305 Hillside Avenue. Her family was very rich. Service staff were there to help with everything. Her dad, James Edward Russell, was a great trial lawyer who worked for big businesses and made a lot of money. Clara McKnight Russell, her mother, was from a wealthy family and worked for Vogue magazine as a fashion director. Many people thought Rosalind's name came from Shakespeare's play As You Like It. Is it true? The boat, the SS Rosalind, is where her parents got the idea for her name. This strange name fit her nature and would make her life very different. Rosalind went to strict Catholic schools like Tarrytown, New York's Marymount College. She had a safe life, but she wanted more freedom and fun. She applied to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City in secret when she was 19. She lied to her mother and said she wanted to be a drama teacher instead of an actor because she knew her parents wouldn't let her. In this small way, she showed how brave she was, which became a part of her personality and work. In later movies, she often played strong women who stood up for themselves. Rosalind began her job after she graduated from the Academy in 1929. Her family didn't agree with her choice, but she didn't care. To make money, she worked as a fashion model, doing shoots for top designers and being in magazines. She never gave up playing, though, and kept looking for parts on stage. In 1930, she got her big break when she got a part in the Broadway revue Garrick Gaieties. It was a hit, and there were 161 performances. It was Rosalind's first taste of fame. Rosalind did something brave in the summer of 1930, even though her folks didn't want her to. She joined a stock company in Saranac Lake, New York. She lived in a small space and put on a new play every week for 7 months. It was hard for her, but it made her a better performer. In order to become popular, she had to learn how to change quickly and think on her feet. She joined Boston's Edward E. Clive's repertory company in 1931. She learned how important voice acting was for the new talking movies during this time. To get ready, she started taking voice and singing lessons seriously. Rosalind did a short run of opera in small settings around New York in 1932. She quickly learned, though, that her voice wasn't strong enough for classical music. She didn't let this setback stop her. Instead, it made her push herself harder. She chose to focus on playing in movies and going to Hollywood. Rosalind went to Los Angeles in 1934 to follow her dream. With her background in modeling and on Broadway, she stood out, and Universal Studios quickly gave her a contract. However, she had a terrible time at Universal. She didn't feel welcome or noticed on her first day, and the company didn't treat her well. Rosalind knew right away that Universal wasn't the right place for her. MGM, the most prestigious studio in Hollywood, also saw her at the same time. Rosalind thought this was her chance to get away from Universal because they asked her to do a screen test. She thought of a smart way to get out of her contract. That's why she chose to look so bad that Universal would no longer want her. On June 15, she met Carl Laemmle Jr., who was in charge of making movies at Universal. Rosalind didn't like him liking beautiful women, so she did the opposite. She wore bad clothes, messed up her hair and makeup, and her voice was annoying. She slouched and was careless, spilling coffee on his desk. She kept complaining about how bad things were at Universal for 45 minutes straight. Carl was so uneasy and bored with her that he agreed to let her go. Rosalind hurried to get ready and then went straight to MGM to sign a new contract as soon as she left his office. On July 2, 1934, just 17 days later, Rosalind joined MGM for real. The studio was already excited about her prospects when she signed the 7-year deal. Her first big chance came up quickly. She was cast in Evelyn Prentice, a movie starring big names like William Powell and Myrna Loy. Rosalind had a small but important part as Mrs. Nancy Harrison, with only 12 minutes of screen time, but even in those 12 minutes she made a strong impact. During filming, there was a tough moment when she had to fake an emotional breakdown in a courtroom scene. She was nervous about acting alongside such big stars and couldn't get the scene right at first. The director is named William K. Howard got angry and yelled at her in front of everyone. Instead of falling apart, Rosalind used her real anger to fuel her performance. She really cried, and the scene she did was so powerful that everyone was stunned. When the movie came out on November 9, 1934, critics were quick to notice how good Rosalind was. The New York Times even mentioned her by name, praising her work. The people at MGM saw how good she could be and raised her pay from $300 a week to $500 a week. She had parts in 3 more movies by the end of the year, and her career was on the rise. The movie The Women, which came out in 1939, was her big break. The path to getting the part wasn't easy. George Cukor, the director, had wanted someone else to play the part at first, but when that actress couldn't do it, Rosalind stepped in. He gave her a chance after she walked into his office and said, "My name is Sylvia Fowler." The first 4 screen tests didn't go well, though. She did a show that he thought was too much and not sharp enough. Rosalind always cried as she went back to her dressing room, but she wouldn't give up. She did her best on her 5th and last test. She paid $500 of her own money for a handmade outfit and watched a panther at the zoo to learn how to move like a cat. It worked out because she did her best. To be exact, she was cast as Sylvia Fowler on April 25, 1939. Rosalind did more than just act when filming began in May. She worked with a hairdresser to create Sylvia's unique flipped haircut, which became a trend among fans. When the movie was released on September 1, 1939, it was a massive hit. Rosalind's performance stood out, and reviewers loved her sharp wit and comedic timing. The movie made over $2 million, and Rosalind's pay was raised to $3,000 a week. Her comedic skills made her one of the best actors in Hollywood. But on June 17, 1939, while they were shooting, something famous happened. A fight scene was being filmed between Rosalind and her co-star Paulette Goddard. After 14 takes, everyone was tired and angry from the catfight that was meant to be fun. Things got out of hand on the 15th take. In the heat of the moment, Rosalind bit Paulette on the leg. Paulette screamed in pain, and shooting had to stop. Rosalind's bite broke the skin, and Paulette needed 3 stitches. The studio quickly came up with a fake story for the press, saying Paulette had hurt herself while riding a horse. Rosalind was shocked by what she had done and tried to apologize, but Paulette refused to talk to her for weeks. They got back together and even became friends in the end. Paulette got a small scar on her leg from the bite that you could see in some of her later movies. It wasn't used in the final cut of the movie, but Rosalind finally talked about it in public in her autobiography, which came out in 1977. She said, "I've played many animals on screen, cats, snakes, you name it, but that day I actually became one. It's a moment I've regretted for decades, but it taught me an invaluable lesson about the line between acting and reality. The bite scene is legendary in Hollywood lore. In 2019, during the 80th anniversary showing of The Women at the TCM Classic Film Festival, Goddard's granddaughter revealed that the family still owned the dress Paulette wore during the infamous scene. In the golden age of Hollywood, Rosalind Russell was one of the most famous stars of all time. His Girl Friday, which came out in 1940 and stars Cary Grant, was her big break. Hildy Johnson wasn't supposed to be her part at first. At first, director Howard Hawks gave it to Carole Lombard, but her fee was too high. Jean Arthur, Irene Dunne, and Ginger Rogers were some of the other stars who said no. Russell didn't think she could play the part, but she tried anyway. Hey, people really liked how fast the conversation was spoken. 240 words per minute, which is almost 3 times faster than normal. Russell worked on her lines for hours every day to keep up. She worked so hard that she passed out during practice and got a stammer that she had to work hard to get rid of. The fact that she changed things up during the performance made it even better. Russell felt her character didn't have enough good lines, so she secretly hired a copywriter to make extra quips for her. She slipped these into scenes without warning, surprising Cary Grant, who had to quickly respond to her ad-libs. This made their chemistry on screen feel lively and unexpected. Russell left the theater in the middle of the movie's premiere because she thought she had done a terrible job. But the movie was a big hit, making over $2 million, which was a lot of money for 1,940, and making Russell a comedy star. Russell did more than just comedy for a living. In 5 years, she was nominated for 3 Oscars for 3 very different parts. In the 1942 movie My Sister Eileen, she played Ruth Sherwood, a character from Ohio, even though Russell was from Connecticut. She worked with a dialect teacher for several months to get her Midwest accent just right. Her role was so convincing that audiences thought she really came from Ohio. In the 1946 movie Sister Kenny, she played Elizabeth Kenny, an Australian nurse who came up with a controversial way to treat polio. Russell felt a connection to this part because Kenny's methods had helped her nephew. She lived with the real Elizabeth Kenny for 6 weeks to learn how she behaved and even copied the way she walked. Her third mention came from the 1947 movie Morning Becomes Electra, in which she played the dark and complicated Lavinia Manon. Russell felt drained by this part, and the intense nature of the movie made her have a nervous breakdown when it was over. When the 1948 Oscars were given out, Russell was so sure she would win for this part that she stood up when the winner was announced. She was shocked when Loretta Young's name was called. Afterward, Russell made a joke about how loudly she sat down again. Russell's most well-known role was in Auntie Mame, which she played later in her career. In 1956, she played the part on Broadway, and then in 1958, she played it in a movie. It wasn't easy to get the part. The producers really wanted Greer Garson to play it. Russell had to work hard to get the part, and she even did scenes in the producer's office to show that she could play Mame. The show ran for 639 performances on Broadway, and Russell never missed a single one, even though she had terrible arthritis. In fact, she got Auntie Mame's elbow from throwing her arms wide so many times during one of her famous lines. The movie producers didn't want Russell to play the part because they thought he was too old. She made them do a screen test with full makeup and an outfit to hide her age, and they agreed. It was the most successful movie of 1958 and got her another Oscar nod. Many fans loved her as Mame so much that they wrote to her and asked her to adopt them. One fan went so far as to break into her house because they thought she was anti-MAME. Russell was good at both comedy and drama just as much. She did a lot to get ready for her parts. For a fight scene in The Women, 1939, she paid a boxer to teach her how to throw a real punch. For His Girl Friday, her comedy timing was so important to her that she got her wisdom teeth taken out to improve the way she spoke. She took things just as seriously when they got emotional. For The Trouble with Angels, 1966, where she played a nun, Russell lived in a convent for 2 weeks to understand the pattern of the sisters. Her commitment to dramatic parts was most intense during Morning Becomes Electra. To stay in character, she isolated herself from the company and even had a soundproof dressing room built so she could focus. Russell's versatility went beyond acting. She learned singing and dancing for the Broadway show Wonderful Town, winning a Tony Award despite having no prior experience. Early in her career, she had been frustrated by being typecast in supporting parts, so she secretly studied serious acting and literature to prove her dramatic abilities. Because she was determined, she was able to change her job in a way that fit her needs. But going back and forth between comedies and dramas all the time hurt her mental health. Russell later said that she had been dealing with bipolar illness throughout her career. She thought that having mood swings helped her give complicated characters in movies like Picnic, 1155, and Gypsy, 1162, more emotional depth. Because of her struggles and successes, she was one of the most interesting actors of the golden age of Hollywood. Rosalind Russell met Frederick Braun, who would become her husband. Their story is so cute that it could be in a Hollywood romantic movie. Braun was taking a ship from Europe to America in 1939. The movie The Women was shown over and over again on the trip, and Braun became very interested in Rosalind's performance as Sylvia Fowler. He told his friends as a joke, "I'm either going to kill that girl or marry her." He had no idea that Cary Grant would give him the chance he was looking for. When Braun got to the USS so he could stay at Grant's guest house while Grant filmed His Girl Friday with Russell, Braun was excited to meet Grant to put them in touch. Every day on set, Grant asked Russell, "Have you met Freddie Braun?" Because he was always up for setting people up. She thought it was funny and would say, "No, what is that, a sandwich?" Grant didn't give up, and on February 23, 1940, he finally made it happen. One evening, Rosalind opened her door expecting to go out dancing with Grant, but instead found him with Braun. The three of them met through Grant and went to dinner together that night. The dinner started a romance that quickly turned into one of the longest-lasting couples in Hollywood. Rosalind and Frederick got married in a fancy ceremony in California on October 25, 1941. The person who brought them together, Cary Grant, was of course the best man. Their happiness grew when they had their son, Carl Lance Braun, on November 7, 1943. Rosalind's career was at its peak when Lance was born, just a year after she was nominated for an Oscar for her role in My Sister Eileen, 1942. They were deeply committed to each other for 35 years, until Rosalind's death in 1976. Braun gave Rosalind a gold band with the number 35th wedding anniversary. She loved it and wore it until the end of her life. Rosalind was ahead of her time in how she balanced having a successful job with being a mother. The mom didn't keep her son away from work. She brought Lance to movie sets. She wanted him to know that being an actress wasn't all fun and games. It was also a lot of hard work. Rosalind kept taking on difficult jobs even after she became a mother. In 1946, just 3 years after Lance was born, she was nominated for another Oscar for her role in Sister Kenny. She also worked on her husband's 1948 movie, The Velvet Touch, which shows how they worked together professionally. Rosalind put her family first, even though she had a busy job. In 1941, she and Braun bought a house in Beverly Hills and paid cash for it so that they could raise their family in a stable and loving home. Throughout her life, this house was their safe place. It gave them a sense of routine in the crazy world of Hollywood. Rosalind's Catholic religion had a big impact on her life and work in Hollywood. The Catholic Motion Picture Guild in Beverly Hills and the Good Shepherd Parish were both important to her. In strange ways, her faith sometimes had something to do with her work. She heard that a Catholic school in St. Louis needed money for a new building from an old school friend who was now a Mother Superior, while she was getting ready for her role in The Trouble with Angels, 1066. Rosalind talked Columbia Pictures into letting the movie's opening happen in St. Louis. Ticket sales would go to the school and help it out. This kind deed gave her character more depth in the movie and helped the school a lot. She changed her job and how she behaved on set because of her faith. She was known for being professional and having high moral standards, which she always linked to her Catholic background. These decisions did not hurt her career. Instead, they made her stand out as a sophisticated and well-liked actor. Late in life, Rosalind Russell had a lot of ups and downs. As Hollywood changed in the 1950s and 1960s, she went on to work on TV and in plays. She shocked everyone on September 15, 1953, when she showed up on TV in Schlitz Playhouse of Stars. It was big news because people saw her a lot in movies. But things turned out well because her TV shows became very popular. Over 277 million people watched her live 1958 show of Wonderful Town on CBS. At that time, that was almost half of all houses with a TV. She became a Broadway star around this time. That same year, she was in the show Wonderful Town, which was based on her movie My Sister Eileen. The show was a huge hit. It ran for 559 performances and won a Tony Award in 1953 for Wonderful Town. It was a big deal for her. In almost 20 years, she hadn't been on stage, but she came back stronger than ever. She didn't even know how to sing, but she worked hard with a coach for 6 months to learn the songs. During her Broadway show, she was a star because of her great timing, sense of humor, and beautiful voice. The fact that she won a Tony Award for the musical showed that she was great in any field. Rosalind Russell had a huge effect on both Hollywood and stage acting. From comedies to dramas, she set the bar for how versatile an actress could be, and her work is still admired today. She proved that an actress could get through anything with hard work, humor, and drive, and she left a lasting mark on the entertainment business.